podcast dedicated to the Open Division and Contenders, the developmental scene for the Overwatch League. And welcome back to the Blackwatch Report. Tonight we have our first interview. We're going to be talking to Aero Atkins, coach of the Fusion University, the academy team for the Philadelphia Fusion. How's it going tonight, Aero?
It's going great. How are you doing?
I'm not doing too bad. Not gonna lie, this is my first Twitch interview, so tad nervous, but not my first interview, so hopefully it goes well.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
to get started, we're going to do a little bit of personal stuff about you. Can you let the listeners know kind of what your gaming origin story is? What are the games and your path that you took to get here in your gaming history?
Sure. So my very first competitive game actually was Halo 1 for PC. I was young, but it was really fun. First person shooter. Uh, very bad with how far you had to aim ahead of people, but it was fun. It was a good experience to learning what FPSs were all about, and then from there, I ended up actually spending a lot of time doing competitive World of Warcraft stuff. And then once I graduated high school, I actually took a break from games altogether, and I spent 3 years traveling with a public speaker. And then once I was able to get enough for another gaming computer, it was right about the time when the Dota 2 beta, closed beta, was going out, and I got an invitation to it. And that's where I started getting back into playing competitively. I signed up as an amateur support player. Got signed to this some little tiny org, and played support for probably 4 or 5 months. From there, the team kind of fell apart, so I ended up going into analysis, and I did some Dota 2 analysis, League of Legends analysis until Overwatch came out. At which point I played Overwatch. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go competitive with it because I had a lot going on with my career outside of games. And then I decided, hey, let's take a shot at it. I started as a player. I tried out for a team as a support, and it ended up being the Widowmaker because it was time when Widowmaker was basically the meta. And then, yeah, played Widowmaker for a few months. The team kind of got fell apart, and everybody went their own directions. And long story short, I ended up coaching, and so I decided to use some experience I had from leading the internship program from when I was traveling as a public speaker, and I did some uh, coaching back when I was in high school and during traveling and stuff, and decided to take that knowledge and apply it to Overwatch, and that's uh, where I started with coaching in Overwatch with a TESPA team, Kansas State University. And we didn't get too far as my first time, but I ended up going to another team called 20 Tick Gaming, which had a couple notable names on it now. If you follow the contender scene currently, there was a guy named Nero, a guy named KSF, both on it, and we did pretty well. But we ended up I ended up going to Immortals. I met the coach at the time for Immortals, joined the coaching staff, and that's how I got into the tier one scene at the time. And yeah.
That's awesome. If you don't mind me asking, what did you do in the competitive World of Warcraft?
It was mostly PVE, like raiding. So it was, spending 30 hours a week, 30 to 40 hours a week raiding. We were one of the higher guilds. And then I didn't actually get too big into PvP because I didn't have time because I was also going to high school.
Oh yeah, I was a raider for a long time, so I
Okay.
I know that life. So as far as your history of coaching goes, you mentioned Immortals. we know that you've done FNRGE, and now you're on the Fusion University. What was it like coaching for Immortals and then FNRGFE and now the university? What's some of the differences between those different organizations?
Yeah. So Immortals was my first time, and I wasn't the only coach there. And so it was really interesting to be a part of guys that were such high caliber. The players were incredible, and it was really interesting to be able to coach those guys, 'cause they were young too, um, but they were kind of just being breaking into the scene as real contenders in Tier One. So that was interesting to be able to coach in that environment, and I learned a lot because it was my first really organized coaching, you know, section. And then once FNRGFE started, that one was very different from Immortals, very different from a Fusion University is now, because we didn't have an org. It was entirely player owned. No one was getting paid. I was, um, I'd work all day in IT and then come home in mid scrim and continue coaching from there. And it was very interesting, to try and pull it all together with very few resources. And then Fusion University so far has just been absolutely incredible. The staff behind Fusion is wonderful to work with. They've given everything that I've ever needed. They've given so much support, and of course the players are really awesome. And so it's very structured. Right now, I'm pretty much doing almost everything on the university side, which is fun. I get to orchestrate it exactly how I want, and the players work with it really well. And I think so far we've shown pretty good results, and but we're not aiming for good results in the next 2 weeks. We're aiming for good results through the next 6 months. So
Oh,
yeah,
oh yeah, I've been keeping up with the Beat Invitational, and then currently in the pit.
yeah.
You guys look fantastic. Really good job so far.
Thank
Um,
you.
but moving on here, what were your thoughts when the FNRGFE squad all got picked up by Houston?
Mhm. Well, I knew that Muma and Coolmat got picked up pretty early. They were pretty hot ticket guys whenever Overwatch League started recruiting, because they were one of the best North American tank line duos, which in terms of North American tank, there wasn't that many that had that kind of um, synergy and just talent. So they got picked up early. I didn't actually find out that everybody got picked up until the week that we were in LA for contenders. That was kind of when everything got finalized. And you know I, one of the things in coaching that my philosophy has always been that I want to make sure that my guys know that I'm supporting them for their career. And I never ever want to hold them back from anything. I always want to make sure that they can always keep growing and be happy in what they're doing. And when the core of them got picked up together, I was really happy that even though I didn't get to be a part of it, um, I was really glad that they got to go together, because they work so well, and they're really good friends, and they grow together very well. It was really easy to do analysis stuff with those guys, because they have this relationship that is really good from a teamwork perspective. So it was really cool, and I was really happy for them.
Oh yeah,
So
it's like watching your kids go off to school. Like you're
yeah,
just proud, like they've made it. They're
yeah,
they're moving on to the big leagues. Um, so on to the next question here. What was your plan heading into the start of Overwatch League? Just kind of what were you looking to try to do in there?
yeah. So ideally, uh, ideally, I wanted to coach. I really enjoy coaching. Like, coaching is a lot more than just analysis. Analysis is one of the main parts, but there's a lot of teamwork stuff that you have to go into as a coach. A lot of things that aren't tangible or in-game stuff that you have to deal with, and that's something that I've done, for a long time. And that's ideally what I wanted to, and I did. I was looked at by a couple of different Overwatch organizations, but things just kind of didn't work out. So um, as soon as uh, when while that stuff was going on, I was still planning to prepare for contenders next season should that come up. And so I was really focused on making my own content, making sure that the FNRGFE guys were taken care of, and then also looking forward to the next season of stuff should Overwatch League not work out, which it didn't. And so I was working on a lot of scouting, analysis, and just coaching stuff in general.
Oh yeah, that's definitely cool. I know that I mean, there's a ton of coaches out there. We're starting to see more coaches get picked up by Overwatch League teams, and going into the other academy teams. Since you guys are currently the only officially announced academy team, um, but there's still lots of space out there, and now with the announcement that they are looking to expand come season 2, it should be interesting to see not only where the players go, but where all the coaches and
Yeah,
the analysts land, because there's a lot of them out there that deserve to be on an Overwatch League team, helping contribute to this esport and the future of the league. So right now we're going to move into the team questions.
sure.
um, Now, did you have any hand in picking, the current FU roster? And if so, what went into, picking these kids basically, since they're all 18 or younger?
Yeah. So I had a hand in part of the roster. There were a few guys that were already signed by the time I got here. I spoke a lot with the staff, with the Fusion staff, before I even knew who the team was, and we kind of shared visions, plans, what we thought was the best way to build a roster for the contenders. For the contender scene, and we shared a couple of the same things that we wanted to look for. We wanted to look for guys that were really talented, that either didn't have an opportunity to prove themselves, or things just didn't work out to where they were able to show how good they actually are. And we wanted to take this group of guys, whether it was they're too young or team issues, whatever it was, and just take these guys and be able to mold them into perfect Overwatch League candidates. And we pretty much were on the same page from a staff perspective, and so the guys that were already here when I got here were Elk, Zach, Beast, and Zerg, and they all fit exactly what I was looking for. One of the things that I did before coming to Fusion Academy was I had my own list of player power rankings of guys that I wanted to look at regardless of where I was, and Beast, Elk, and Zach were all on that list already. They were already very highly ranked on my list. Zerg, I actually didn't really know until the Fusion staff introduced me to him, and he actually works out to be the perfect idea of what academy teams can do for a player. He's just a perfect example of what can be for some of these young guys that don't have much competitive experience. So when we found out that Who Are You and Alarm were on the table, it was one of those things where I immediately was like, let's go for it, because we have the infrastructure to be able to support these guys, and their reputation precedes them. They're obviously incredibly talented guys, but they also wanted to be in NA. It wasn't something where it's like, oh, come over, we'll pay you a bunch or whatever. It was they wanted to be a part of North America, and so the having them wanting to plus having this infrastructure, I was all for it. And then the last person to get signed was actually Kraken, and he was a guy that he was playing with the Toronto esports squad, and I had my eye on him for quite a long time because there really was not many good off tanks in North America, and he was by far one of the best. And after talking to him and actually meeting him, it was pretty clear that I wanted this guy because he has an incredible attitude. He's mechanically really good, and he works really well as a team in a team environment. So it was a perfect fit. We got him all together, and things just were working smoothly from the start. So that's kind of how it all got formed.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, like I was gonna ask you if you could share who was signed, but you let us know already. That's really interesting that as soon as you found out about Who Are You and Alarm, like that was your go-to. So
Mhm.
talking about Who Are You and Alarm, how's their English and how's it affected their communication with the guys from
Sure.
NA, being from Korea?
Um, so there's a lot of things that they already share with guys that with the guys on the team as far as English goes. Anything in game, we can pretty much use any terms in game, and they already know it. For things that aren't specific to Overwatch, we had a list of stuff that the Korean pronunciation, the English pronunciation, all those kind of terms, so that way they could learn and work together and get that stuff. But we also have some curriculum set up for them to learn English. They even before they started that stuff, they already communicated fairly well. We could get the main points across. We couldn't hold conversations with them in general, but you could still communicate and be able to express when things are good, when things are bad, but what things we need to change, how we want to approach certain points and do things. I think uh, Alarm took to it maybe a little faster than Who Are You did, but they both, currently they're both doing really well in learning English, and they communicate really well. So even in tournaments, we don't really ever have any issues um, with them. I mean, in the beginning, we kind of had to learn to uh, adapt from the English speaking side because there's just a certain way, just the structure of the language is different from Korean. So when talking to them, a lot of times we have to address them in game, or just little things that are pretty easy tweaks. But the big thing is that Who Are You and Alarm both have great attitudes about it, and they work really well, even if they can't understand everything. So everyone's kind of giving a little to meet in the middle and make sure it works.
Oh, that's definitely awesome. Because, I mean, with their age and the fact that they live worlds apart, the game, like you said, the things inside of the game, it transcends that. It's as simple
Mhm.
as you can make a call out in game in English to, who are you, an alarm, and
Mhm.
they'll understand it because they know they've adapted the mechanics and the bits of the game that they need to push themselves into that next level. And that's fantastic
Mhm.
knowledge, just knowing about these guys coming into, the first season of the Contenders Trials, or
Mhm.
Contenders for you guys.
Right.
But that takes us actually right into the next question here. Has the idea of a team house or like any in-person boot camps come up for the university?
Yeah, we talked about a team house for a bit, and we ended up deciding we're not going to go with the full team house thing right now. Um, but I am a very big believer in working together in person. It was something that I wished I could do on FNRGFE a lot, and we already have plans to do some kind of stuff to make sure that we have in-person interaction, and then also whenever we can, depending on the timing, we want to do some kind of boot camp situation. I definitely want to do it. I think it's very beneficial. We actually have all the guys going to the Hometown Heroes event in Philly this weekend. So everyone's going to finally get to meet each other and talk to each other, including Who Are You and Alarm, being able to come visit and meet everybody. So there's definitely those plans. I value that interaction very much.
Oh, yeah, and that's cool knowing that Who Are You and Alarm will actually be stateside for the hometown heroes. I actually
Mhm.
wish I lived a little bit closer, because I would love to come out and see that in person and meet all of the guys. That'd be
Yeah.
pretty awesome. Now that takes us right into the next question here. Has the visa processes been started for Who Are You and Alarm in case of any like in-person land matches, and then like you know this coming weekend the hometown heroes?
hmm The visa process has been started. We're hoping to be able to get it finished up soon. We do want to move Who Are You and Alarm to North America when we can. That's that way they can benefit from the in-person tutoring as well. As far as the event, they're just coming to visit for this. It's not like they're coming to play or work or whatever. The visa thing is in progress. We're hoping to be able to get it finished up as soon as possible because we want these guys to be North America. Playing from Korea, not only is there the ping thing, if we get West Coast server, they're on 120 150 ping, but then if we get East Coast server, they're on 200. We had to play Pit this weekend, a couple of our matches on with Who Are You and Alarm at 200 ping, and that's just awful to play with. And then also the timing, a lot of these guys, uh, the sleeping schedule and just the normal schedule for most of the people in Overwatch is very different from what these guys are having to do. So who are you and Alarm are having to wake up at 6 or 7 a.m. just to be able to scrim? And one of the tournaments in Beat, they had to wake up at 3 in the morning to be able to play, and that kind of stuff just isn't healthy, and we don't want to keep them in that environment for any longer than we absolutely have to. So we want to get them over as soon as we possibly can to alleviate those things.
Oh yeah, that would get real tiresome having to change your sleep schedule, for scrims or for tournaments and everything like
Right.
that. Now going into a little bit on the Beat Invitational, since this team is still new, what was the initial focus? Like, did you guys start with, kind of dive since that's kind of a bread and butter comp, it's easy to learn, and then just branch out from there?
hmm that kind of was our starting point. Dive was, but the thing about dive is that it has like an easy starting point, but to get to the being better at dive takes a lot of finesse and a lot of little things that a lot of teams can't do. So we were able to get to that next level part of dive really quickly just because everyone's very familiar with it. We have guys that are incredibly talented on that, but it's not the only thing that we focus. The reason we've been playing dive, especially in beat and in pit, is largely because um, we don't have to show anything else right now because right now not many people can beat it. There's actually two different like philosophies for why we played dive. So against everyone else that's not in vision, we played it for that reason that not many people can beat our dive. We don't have to show anything else because we're already at a point where we can beat the quad tank. We can beat the Junkrats. We can beat that. But in vision, Envision was a little different because they have Buds is incredibly good at Junkrat, and so we wanted to take them to maps that didn't involve them playing Junkrat for that specific tournament. So we were confident in beating them in the diverse dive, and we wanted to keep them away from Junkrat, keep them away from the beefy tanky comps, and force them to match us on that. And we were pretty confident in doing that, and it went pretty well. So that's kind of like the two reasonings why. Um, the tanky comps uh, and Junkrat also. Generally, you can get away with a lot more if you aren't at a certain skill cap or a certain skill level. So it's very forgiving to teams that are newer or that don't have that are above that skill floor to be able to make dive work effectively. And so you know, a lot of these teams are running that right now because you can get away with it against teams that don't know how to deal with it. But our guys we're already at a point where we can deal with that sort of stuff, and so we haven't had to change anything off a dive.
Oh yeah, your guys' coordination. It looks like you guys have been a team for quite some time together. Like it's amazing what you guys have done in the amount of time that you've had. Um, Now speaking a little bit more about the Envision, how'd you guys, handle the Envision early on and not let them snowball and you guys end up turning it around and pushing the win out of it. What was kind of um, the mindset in that match against Envision?
Sure. So the day before we had 3-0'd them, and we spent a lot of time prepping for how exactly they were going to play. And I personally am very familiar with Bud's play style as well as pretty much everyone on Vision. So we were confident in how they would show against us. We knew that day two would be very different because just their personality, they're willing to adapt and try new things, and they adapted very well going into the second day we faced them. And the first map we picked was Anubis, and that was kind. I look back on that and go, we probably shouldn't have picked Anubis first because they had been warm on it from their previous match. They had just stomped a team on Anubis, and probably should have avoided that first, just because they were warm on it. But they took that one, and then they got their pick, which we kind of were expecting them to take us to Lijiang or Kings Row and be able to use the Junkrat and do pretty well. And so it was one of those where it's like, okay, we know we've gotten their two strongest maps out of the way. We know that we can beat these guys head to head. Rather than focus on what happened, let me focus on what happened, and everyone else focus on what's next. What do we got to do next? What things should we be prioritizing? When it comes to dive, there's very minute things that make it work, whether it's who you focus, the timings of when you jump in, who's going to be taking um, the enemy's attention, how are we going to manipulate their supports, that sort of thing. And so we adapted pretty well on the fly and just kept focusing on our next match and making our next win. And the guys pulled it off, and I was super proud of them because it's pretty tough to go down 0-2 and be able to come back and take it. And for such a new team, before B, I think we had maybe a week's worth of scrims to be able to prep for it. They did incredibly well, and I was super proud of them for being able to pull it back.
Yeah, to turn around a week's worth of scrims and do and have the performance that you guys had, in beat, and then now going into pit. It's pretty amazing. These guys have really taken to each other and synergized at a fantastic level. Like, I love watching them. I'm not gonna lie, it's fun watching them. Especially that who are you? And I believe it was Kraken, the Doomfist Reinhardt combo. I believe it was on King's Row.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah, that was something that we actually did in scrims once, where we were trying to figure out how exactly we could make that communication work, and they're so good about it, and it's really cool to be able to see it pulled off in a match. So there was that's one of the concerns that people talked to us about with communication. How's that going to affect? Are they going to be able to pull off those kind of combos in the future? And that's just an example of one of those things that in game we can make this happen, even if they don't speak fluent English.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to see what other crazy combinations and setups that you guys are able to pull off, because young minds come up with some of the most crazy things, and if it works, it's a thing of beauty.
Hmm.
Now, moving on here, speaking of young minds, where do you see Zerg fitting into your guys' lineup?
Yeah. So Zerg's an interesting case because um, he's unbelievably skilled. Mechanically, he's insane. Um, his first ever scrim was when he tried out for us. So he doesn't have the familiarity of a team environment like a lot of these other guys do. So I've actually had a lot of people asking me, why hasn't Zerg played yet? And it's for that reason, because he's while he is very good and I'm very confident in Zerg, I want to make sure he has a safe environment to grow and learn a lot of these things that a lot of the current players have had months or years to learn. Um, I want to give him an environment where if he does overextend and he gets punished for it, it's safe. It's something that we can look at, we can review, we can fix. And if we were to do that publicly, it wouldn't really be fair to Zerg. So it's one of those where he's already coming along very well. He's working really well with the team and adapting and growing already. So it's really cool to see his growth right now. And we were able to put him in yesterday against LCG. Just one of those things because we were pretty confident in how he would play on that map against that team. So he's a guy that I'm not looking for him to pop off in the next 2 weeks. He's got a long time to grow and learn before he's eligible for Overwatch League, and that's our goal. I want to take a time, do it slow, and make sure that he learns how to do everything the right way, the correct way, and have a solid foundation for him to grow and become the unstoppable force in the future. I want him to be looked at like who are you looked at in Korea, getting ready, you know, uh, for him to be just an all-star for Overwatch League. So that's the plan with Zerg.
And one of the things that me and my co-host Kyle had talked about in our first episode, we actually recorded right after you guys announced and were starting your beat run. Uh, it was the fact that you guys had such a young team, and like that's we both agreed that like that's the epitome of what an academy team should be. This is the place where you you build and you mold the talent, whether it's for your team or just for, the league in general. Um and I think you guys did a fantastic job, putting together a roster that you guys are going to be able to not only, win games with, but mold over the next couple of years and just continue to have success, and then pull those guys up into your parent uh, organization, the Fusion. And
Hmm.
I really can't wait to see some of these guys move on to the next stage.
Yeah.
It's going to be fantastic. Now moving on here, uh, we just saw the new patch go live, and Mercy has been pretty much um, cut down to a very small percentage of playtime in the meta. Where do you see the meta heading with this current patch, and just tanks and dive, or more options as far as metas go? Are we going to see the most diverse meta that Overwatch has seen right now?
This meta definitely has the potential to be the most diverse meta. The big thing that's going to come down to is how teams are willing to approach all these different comps, and if they feel like they have the structure to make it work. Because dive will still be very strong. I think we've shown that. Tanks will be very strong in certain situations. You have a lot of different 2-2-2 comps that can work, or even triple DPS comps that can work. And it's not just limited to always playing Mercy or always playing Zen. Mercy still has a spot. Granted, she's a little weak right now, but there's a lot of different stuff that you can do, and I hope that we'll be able to show everything that we already are confident in, because there is so much that you can do if you have the talent pool and you have the coordination to be able to do it. So I'm sure that a lot of people are going to resort back to dive. The teams that were particularly good in tank comps will resort back to tank comps, but there definitely is a lot more options than there were before. So I'm very excited for it.
Oh yeah, definitely. And now staying a little bit, within the meta, what's your thoughts on the current state of the balance of the game? A couple things here is Zen currently too strong? Should the Junkrat nerfs been a little bit more? Um, do you guys think that Moira is too powerful? What are your thoughts on the current balance?
So for Zen specifically, I don't think that Zen is too strong. I do think that his right click needs tuned, because it's just not fun to get one shot the moment you peek a corner, or just from across the map. Some kind of tweak to make it to where it's a little more than just being able to spam certain corners and and get free team fight wins. For Junkrat, I like where they started with it. I do think maybe a little more, but he he the thing about him now is he's exploitable now, whereas the damage mine made it very hard to be able to duel him. And so now that you can, he's a little bit more exploitable than he was. Um, I think that he'll be fine. I personally would like to see maybe a little more of a nerf, but nothing too crazy. Moira's an interesting situation because um, you have to think about where Zen is to be able to understand what Moira's potential will be, because Zen is very much about uh, being able to have that extra damage to tank down tanks, which is why he fits so well and be able to kill people in burst windows. Whereas Moira is very strong in just raw healing. Um, the thing about Moira, in my opinion, that is a little weird is that she gets her ult charge so fast. It kind of reminds me of initial Ana. One of the big things about Ana is you could get Nano Boost very, very quickly and be able to just have it every fight. And so that's something that I think I'd like to see maybe some tweaking on with Moira. But outside of that, she is still exploitable. You as long as you can time how her shifts work and when you know when to focus her, I don't think she's too strong other than the old thing. Her raw healing is something, but it's with having ammo and healing, I don't think it's too much. So I think Moira will be in a good place, maybe with some ult tuning, but overall, I think everything's in mostly good place. Maybe some minor tweaks here and there to a couple heroes.
Oh yeah. Um, yeah, we're kind of seeing a lot of the balance stuff. I mean, they've got the new um, PTR getting ready to drop with a lot of balance and small character tweaks. Once we get a little more information on that, see how that plays out. You actually touched on my last question here, and that was if you had any plans on trying to go into the Overwatch League in any of the future seasons and becoming a coach. Um, it would moving up to the fusion. as an assistant coach or something like that be something that you would be interested in, or would you be want to maybe coach your own team? Like if say that there's an expansion team, would you rather stay with the Fusion and just help them grow, or move on and try to create your own thing like you're doing with the university here?
That's a kind of a tough question. Realistically, I would like to be able to coach in the Overwatch League. I do think that I have the capability to make a team, um, an all star team. Whether that is as an assistant coach or as a head coach, I'm not prideful in wanting to be able to control everything. But I am very happy with where I am now. But eventually in the future, yeah, I'd love an opportunity to do the Overwatch League stuff, and I think that as coaching comes in the spotlight more, there's going to be a lot more guys to be able to learn from the stuff that either I do or a lot of the other coaches are doing to be able to fill a lot of these spots that are open right now. But yeah, I'd definitely be interested in doing Overwatch League in the future.
Oh, fantastic. Now, that's gonna wrap it up for the questions tonight. I really appreciate you, coming on and talking with me. It was great to be able to get some of this information out because there's been a lot of talk about some of the questions on here, um, and it it's awesome that you guys are doing what you're doing for such a young group of guys, and especially with the hometown heroes. Like, someone in the greater Philadelphia area is going to end up with a contract
Hmm.
with the university and be able to play alongside of, some really talented Overwatch players.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Um,
Mhm.
uh, would you like to tell everybody where they can find you at online?
Yeah, definitely. So my Twitter is at Aero underscore OW, and then I have a Twitch Aero Wing Gaming I stream from time to time. But yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to do the interview. And if you haven't checked out the Hometown Hero thing, check out the Fusion University Twitter to get information about that. It's really cool thing. You kind of touched on it. But we are going to be streaming a lot of the matches. You'll be able to see a lot of that stuff. So we're very excited about that event and where the team's going in general. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, no, thank you for coming on. And that's going to wrap it up for tonight. You can find us at Blackwatch Report on Twitter. That is report with no O because Twitter are mean and they don't let me put the O in there. Um, at Twitch TV slash Blackwatch Report. You can email the show, blackwatchreport@gmail.com, and get your questions in. We'd love to hear from the fans and the listeners out there, and pass that on to the tier 2 scene when we talk to any of our potential interviews that are coming up in the future. Again, thank you, Aero. It was a great interview, and this is Blackwatch out.